One of the really important investments of the leadership team is the doctoral preparation track. And so I want to tell a quick story about how that came about. That was a project. So when we were thinking about different ways that our leadership seminar could reject the idea of a scarcity mindset and offer something that seemed to meet a need in the department and that would kind of the principle of investing in a Piedmont park that would create a flourishing structure. One of the things that we had energy around was helping to support the transition of students into the master's programs. And here's the problem that initiated our energy. So what I had seen, and other people had kind of voiced a similar reaction, is we kept seeing very talented, hardworking, just good students. And they would come to the program. We have really good students in our master's programs. They're some of the stronger programs in the country in KCREP. And so these students would come, and inevitably, somewhere around people's summer or fall of their second year, they had basically gone through most of the professors, and a number of professors had told them, you might want to think about doing a doctoral program. Like the way that you're asking questions, like you're reading, you're engaging, the literature, you remind me, you may not want to do this may not fit, but you remind me of our doc students. Like you could be a doc student. And so probably somewhere around my third or fourth year, I had gotten a reputation for being someone who liked to help students who were thinking about applying to doc programs. And, that's mentoring's like one of my major reasons for having entered psychology. It's probably one of my favorite parts about what I do. And so these students would come and set up a meeting, and, we're sitting there in September, and I'm looking at it, and then it's like, they've got 2 months. What are we going to do? And every time my heart would sink because I'm realizing that if we had had this meeting a year before, this conversation would be so different. Now I basically have to just kind of figure out a way to get them enough on a team so that anyone will write them a letter. But they really, we're in a department that has world-class researchers, a variety of areas where, we're doing outstanding work. It's affecting communities. Like, it's just this vibrant context to study. Like, we've got different people with different priorities, and people can feel what it's like to kind of think about these different directions and feel the difference between the different kind of emphases in career. And you don't have to hear the spiel on the difference between counseling psych and counselor ed. You actually just meet people, and so you can kind of compare your own kind of personal experience and feelings with the window dressing or kind of what's on the website. And so all of this is it's an amazing place to come. Like I can't think of many better places if someone wanted to come and think about whether they might want to pursue a doctoral program. But 2 months isn't enough time to really benefit from much of that. It takes time. And so that was the problem that we started to work on. And again, if you've listened to the other parts, one of the barriers was going to be starting something new was going to be hard. And we pretty much had to do it at cost because there wasn't going to be financial support for what we were doing. And it was actually going to cost everyone time. And so somehow we had to set up a structure that was pretty efficient so that we could kind of not have this happen so many times where students who really would be a good fit for a doctoral program and should certainly weigh it as an option, just hadn't really gotten the messaging. And there's a social justice aspect of what we were identifying. Our department, many of the research in our department kind of frame their work from a lens of multiculturalism and social justice. Those values are kind of infused in many of the professional organizations that we're a part of, and so it's part of the what's on the website, what's on paper. But then we also know that not everyone has equal access to some of these opportunities, and often when opportunities are informal, the people who are more acculturated to how all that works are more likely to kind of navigate that system. And so what we wanted to do is make the messaging much clearer of what kind of opportunities exist in the department if people want that as an option. And so this is where Aman and Shola and I started having conversations, and we just tried something out. I mean, the general, I can kind of quickly, it's a lot quicker to tell you what we tried. We needed to keep the commitment of the faculty members lowish. And so a formal master's thesis is not low. It's essentially another predis or another dissertation, and it might be even harder because you have a limited amount of time. So instead, we established 3 goals that would set people up to roll right into a doc program, especially ours. But what we were assuming is that many of these people would go to other programs, and they would likely be able to use the work they had started, and it would contribute to their acceleration in that doc program. So the 3 goals are to do a systematic literature review, the first steps of that. We have some resources that kind of describe what that is. But the first few steps are to pick a topic that would have a total number of empirical articles, if you kind of found everything, would be in the range of like 15 to 20. And then you pull those articles and create a table. The table would have the study, authors, the year, and then you'd have measures of, maybe the primary construct, so forgiveness, and then other measures that are in the study, and then one box for what the primary findings of the study were. And so that's the first step if you're doing chapter 1 of your dissertation, is to create that table, because that table is then what you use to start to think about the work, to analyze and kind of think about, well, where's their area of convergence? And in particular, where do findings kind of go different ways? That's where the real work comes in. And so that's the first thing. The second is designing a study and collecting the data. And because we had set up SONA, we have the ability to help students finish getting data within a year fairly easily. And then the third was that the faculty member, they would have the student work with a doc student, and there would be kind of a team of 3, and that team of 3 would generate at least one paper that the student could be a co-author on. So if you looked at applications, even among people who get offers and end up going to programs, it's still a very different group who has a submitted peer-reviewed publication. And so that is something that we kind of aim people at. These are minimal goals, so if someone got on a team and did a lot more, and we've had a lot of students who have, that's just great. But these 3 things, if you did them, that conversation, when you get around to September and you've got 2 months to apply, if you had done those things and you've been plugged into a team, you've been meeting regularly, they've been giving you responsibilities on different projects, you're learning about the culture of that team, you're starting to think about what your research interests are, that's going to be a really different experience. And you're going to have a huge leg up. So those were our 3 goals. And then Our structure was paralleled after the leadership seminar. So first 30 minutes is for check-ins. We do the email check-in to kind of stage any things that need to be discussed during that first 30 minutes. Second 30 minutes is for presentations, formative presentations, or inviting speakers. And that group is designed to really provide encouragement, support, accountability, and a group of people with a similar goal. Like, we're trying to get ready for a doctoral program. So sometimes it can feel kind of lonely to be doing things by yourself, or even be the only master's student with a team of doc students. And so that's a group of people who are doing something similar. And it's also a place to kind of have feelings normalized. It's like, it's normal to feel intimidated certain times, or to not know what you're doing. And so kind of having a group that can help you know what to do next when you're having certain feelings can really increase the sense of self-efficacy and the sense of competence. And that's really what we want, is by the time that you're going on interviews, you feel it's not really a matter of could you do it. You know what the deal is. You basically sat in a setting where you understand what it's going to mean to do your doctorate. It's mostly a persistence game. It's a variety of lists to complete, courses, various, getting a certain amount of clinical experience, and then eventually, managing at least 3 research projects, your pre-dis, chapter 1, chapter 2. And so it really is, it's not like any one thing is so difficult, but there's a level of professional maturity and leadership that develops when you kind of manage those multiple roles and responsibilities. And so if you've sat in a context where you feel what that's like and you have a pretty good sense of it, when you interview with someone, it's just going to feel really different. It'd almost be like the difference between interviewing someone who's a senior in high school and someone who's, at the end of middle school. Like, there's developmental shifts that have happened during those periods. In terms of next steps for the doctoral preparation track, some of the things that Aman and I have talked about, we're talking about sustainability. She's invested her heart and soul in this, and it's made a really big difference in the culture of our department. But eventually we need to come up with a plan, because she's not going to be at Georgia State forever. And so what's it going to look like to kind of bring someone in to kind of co-facilitate possibly with her, and then at some point facilitate a transition. Another thing that we kind of learned the first year was we realized we needed to give more structure. So we initially framed it as the primary mentor was the doc student. And some of the doc students kind of ran into trouble with that. It wasn't their fault. That was more us learning by trial and error what was going to work. And I think some of what was happening is it was a little bit unclear how things were supposed to work. And the doc student may not have necessarily had a lot of experience kind of creating the structures of that relationship. The other thing we realized was that we probably needed to have a way of keeping everybody on the same page a little more. And so we created a mechanism for people to submit their plan for the semester and get signatures from everybody, and then a mid-semester evaluation to check in, and then at the end. And probably more than anything, that wasn't as much us doing anything, but we just created the conversation. And because the conversation happened, some of the potential misunderstandings got resolved when they needed to, instead of them kind of dragging forward several months and possibly being something that kind of had to be sorted out. So those were 2 things that we did. Another thing that we're working on is providing more like YouTube channel resources that could be tools that would help advisors. So at any point in the process, if there's a next step, maybe we can start to have resources available. It's like, okay, watch this first, then let's talk. So that It just kind of streamlines some of the transmission of content, especially around steps that are common and regularly require people to kind of ask for support and help.